Hi everyone, and in this video I'll be sharing with you how to use Zremesher. So what is Zremesher? Basically, we are retoporing the whole model, cutting down the poly count so that we can actually have a better topology for sculpting, and at the same time we can actually add subdivision to add further details for your assignment. If you look at the screen, we have two turtle shells. Both of them look almost identical. But this model here on my left is the Dynamesh model, and the one on the right is the Zremesher model. Okay, so on the left, if I'm going to turn on the wireframe, you see that it's very dense. If I click on the Zremesher model on the right, you'll notice that the wireframe is so much cleaner. You can actually see the way the topology is being flowed. Another big difference between the Zremesher and the Dynamesh model is the number of polygons count. So once I click on my Dynamesh, on my top right, you'll notice that the active point right now is about 500,000. If I were to select my Zremesher, it's around 167,000. For that amount of polygon count, we can get almost identical result. So why is it that we don't use Zremesher right at the beginning to do our sculpting? Rather, why we are using Dynamesh? The reason is simply because when we are doing our blocking stage, Dynamesh gives us a better flow of sculpting, and once we reach a certain stage where our primary form and shapes are ready to be Zremeshed, then we will convert it over to a Zremesher model and we will sculpt further primary details on top of it, or even secondary details. Dynamesh can only give us up to a certain level of details. Once we have reached a certain milestone, we'll have to stop using Dynamesh and convert the model over to a Zremesher model. So here I'm going to show you guys how we actually do the Zremesher. First, I'm going to delete away my original Zremesher model. Now we are left with our default Dynamesh model. So I say again, for our Dynamesh model, we want to make sure that our primary shape and form is there. You can add some details if you want to, but most of the time we want to add the details on the final Zremesher model. Okay, so what I usually do is that I will duplicate this Dynamesh model. Okay, and I'm going to rename the model to Zremesher. Zremesher, so that we do not mix up the two mesh together. Now, over on my user interface at the bottom here, you can see that there's a button Zremesher, and the target poly count by default should be 5. So what is 5? Basically, it's like about 5% of this total amount or active point right now. So 5% about 500,000 is about 10,000. So we're going to click on Zremesher, and now what the computer is going to do is that it will calculate and try to come up with your own poly count for you. Okay. Don't forget to save your file before you click on Zremesher in case some of your sculpt is not suitable for Zremeshing. Now you realize that you have two mesh overlapping, which is totally fine, it's correct. So press Shift F again to take a look at the polygon count. It's so much cleaner now, you can really see the flow of the polygons. Unlike Dynamesh, where you can't really see the flow of the topology. Here you can see that the direction of the topology is following the sculpt that you have created. Okay, and like what I mentioned before, 5% of the target polygon count is 10,000. So what we're going to do now, if I were to just turn on solo, you'll see that the polygon count is so little. Yes, you get the shape, but the amount of polygon count is not enough for you to capture the original details that you have here. So some of our details might be lost, but what we can do is to get back those details. So what we're going to do next, again, select your Zremesher polygon count. We are going to divide the model. So under geometry, there is something called divide. So you click on it once, pay attention again, you notice our active point, okay, will times 4. Okay, and now we have a higher polygon count. We can divide one more time. Okay, now it's around 169 polygon count. So what I'm going to do is to select again the Zremesher. Make sure that my Dynamesh model, the eyes is activated, is visible. we are going over to our project. So we click on project all. And what's going to happen here is that the Zremesh model will try to match whatever that is visible at the moment in your subtool. So if you have multiple subtools and if they're all visible, the Zremesh model will actually read them as well and try to project the mesh and force project the mesh to match the whatever that is visible in your subtool. So this concludes our quick tutorial of Zremesher.